Facilities are a whole different beast in Foxhole, tough to learn and even harder to master, but once you start understanding the buildings, learning how to optimize your time, resources, and get production rolling, you'll realize you're creating some of the most critical supplies in the entire game. Today we're breaking down the different types of facilities and how you can jump in and start contributing to a facility or start building your own. And if you're itching to fly planes the moment the airborne update drops, you'll definitely want to understand how facilities work, because from what we've seen, building aircraft is going to rely on facility production. Facilities were introduced in Foxhole 3 years ago on September 28, 2022 with the Inferno update. Reactions were mixed at first. Some players didn't love that certain equipment became facility only and felt it pushed the game more towards group play, and others appreciated the added depth and long-term logistics gameplay. Over time, facilities have proven to be a positive for the game, and we've seen dedicated teams come together to build incredible industrial projects. A lot of the facility content you've probably seen showcases massive projects, the kind that look like a logistical megacity. What most newer players don't realize is setups like this usually take 15 to 20 dedicated players, logging in daily for hours at a time to build, maintain, and keep running. These facilities produce thousands of shells or hundreds of tanks each war, but if you're new to Foxhole or facility work, you won't be jumping into something like that right away unless you join a large clan or assist a group working on an existing design. I've been a part of groups like this before, and I was essentially doing the grunt work most of the time, gathering resources, refining them, and hauling materials where they needed to go to keep production flowing. The actual planning is done by the veteran facility players, and countless hours of layout planning, resource calculations, and location scouting. I get asked a lot by players how they can start something like this, and my number one tip is to be a good leader. Have a plan, take initiative, and find motivated players with the same vision. That's how big projects like these get off the ground. If your goal is to build something like this on a large scale one day, start smaller, build a medium-sized facility and learn how the systems connect, and build up your knowledge and team. Medium facilities can typically be managed by smaller crews around 3 to 5 dedicated players, or maybe roughly even 10 casual players. They often share the same goals as mega facilities, just at a smaller production scale. For example, instead of producing hundreds of tanks during a war, the medium-sized group might aim for 15 or 20 per war. Right now in War 128, I'm running my first medium-sized facility focused on artillery shells and rockets. Even with 3 to 4 dedicated teammates and about 5+ casual players helping, it still takes a lot of planning, coordination, and constant upkeep. We're not producing insane numbers, we just have a steady production going, and I feel like we are still making a meaningful contribution to the war effort. If you are able to find 3 or 4 friends, I think starting off with a medium-sized facility is the way to go when first getting into facility work. Set small goals at first and then expand off them as you continue to learn more. For me, this experience so far has made it clear I couldn't personally commit to running a massive facility, but the confidence to run this one came from first building my own tiny solo facility, which I set up in the previous war to learn the basics firsthand. Solo facilities can be done in Foxhole, but depending on what you're trying to produce, they're often frowned upon within the community. Trying to solo high-tier equipment like super heavy tanks, battle tanks, or naval ships isn't realistic for most players. Yes, a few players have done it before, but from what I've heard, they were playing 8+ hours a day, and honestly it would have been far more efficient for them just to work with a team. I don't believe it was ever the devs' intentions to have facilities run by solo players. Like most things in the game, the devs want you to work with others. For my first solo facility, I kept it simple and focused on making heavy trucks for my faction. These were faster and better armed Logi trucks. It was one of the smallest facility setups you can build, and I still spent around 2 hours a day with the upkeep to keep it running smoothly. Over the course of the war, I produced 104 trucks and gave them to other players for free. It was a very rewarding experience, and it gave me the confidence to eventually run the medium-sized shell facility I'm doing this war. For my solo facility, I also chose not to build up defenses around it, which some facility players would strongly disagree with, but I valued my sanity more than the constant maintenance supply grind. I ended up losing 2 facilities in one war, but I rebuilt them both times, and honestly, each rebuild made the layout cleaner and the production smoother and boosted my confidence with facility work. If you don't want to drown in maintenance cost, skip defenses and accept the risk. Sometimes getting hit by a partisan is just part of the learning curve. As I've mentioned, solo facility play usually isn't recommended, but if you want hands-on experience and really want to learn the system, system, I say just go for it. I believe trial by fire is a great way to learn, and while joining a regiment can be great, some people learn best by just jumping in and figuring it out for themselves. It should be noted though that facility work is probably one of the biggest sources of burnout in Foxhole. I've seen plenty of facilities start strong, only to decay around day 15 or 20 in any given war, as most players start to lose steam during this time. Most facilities demand daily upkeep with no real breaks. You're constantly farming maintenance supplies, or responding to QRF calls, or hauling resources every single day, and that's where the burnout hits. This is what one solo player had to say about their experience. Maybe 10 wars ago I did a facility, and a sizable bunker base to protect it. The facility only made harvesters, it was my goal, and it was on a scrap field. I can say I'm still burnt out from maintaining it all war." End quote. To avoid burning out, start small and scale up only if you have the time and energy. Build in smart locations so resource runs are quick, and if you're working with a group, define roles so everyone knows what they're responsible for. Facility work might not be the flashiest gameplay in Foxhole, but when things click and production flows, the satisfaction is unlike anything else in the game. Here are a few final tips and things to think about before diving into facility gameplay. If you're going to build a solo facility, try to avoid duplicating what nearby groups are already making. Focus on something your region actually needs. It keeps your work useful and helps avoid stepping on any toes. This is how one player put it: "There are almost always facilities not running at full capacity, and asking in region chat can point you to one that already produces what you want. Starting your own small fac is fine for learning, just accept it might end up a rotting husk." End quote. Another important thing is to not build in areas that might block important defensive routes or choke points. You'll end up frustrating your faction. And also be prepared for setbacks. Partisans will attack your base, and your equipment and resources will get stolen, even sometimes by your own team. Having thick skin and learning to adapt are a big part of the process. Facilities can produce everything from guns and ammo to shells to tanks and other vehicles. Know what you want to specialize in before you place a single foundation down. A great way to plan ahead is by using the Foxhole Planner. You can design your entire setup and see the cost before committing to it in-game. I used it for my solo heavy truck facility and it saved me a ton of time. My last suggestion is to do as much research as you can. Watch tutorials from creators like Gremblo and Freerick. They have fantastic breakdowns of facility systems and layouts. I'll be sure to link them in the description below if you want guides that go a little bit deeper. One thing I should have mentioned at the start of this video is don't jump into Foxhole facilities just because you love games like Factorio or Satisfactory. If you expect that level of automation and depth, you're going to be disappointed. Foxholes are a lot less complex and more about busy work. With that said though, there is a unique kind of satisfaction here. For me, the reason I prefer building a facility in Foxhole over a perfectly optimized factory in Factorio is simple. Everything I produce in Foxhole directly supports real players in a persistent war that can last months. Knowing that my work is fueling the front lines and making a difference in the war effort hits way harder than a private save file that no one will ever see. If you want to get into facility work but would rather start alongside an experienced team, I'll leave links in the description below to some top tier facility groups on both factions. They're always welcoming and genuinely enjoy teaching new players the ropes. You can also check the Regiment Finder website to look for facility focused groups in your time zone. It's a great way to plug into a team and learn fast. For those of you that play Foxhole, what do you love about facility work? What tips would you give a new player that wants to get into facility work? Let me know in the comments. Thank you all so much for watching and for your support. Make sure to subscribe for more Foxhole content. I'll see you out on the battlefield. Cheers!